Today we celebrate the last Sunday of the liturgical year, which was called Christ the King, and is now called our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe. This is a recent feast that was began in 1925 by Pope Pius IX. And it used to be the Sunday nearest to All Saints' Day, showing Jesus as the King of all the saints. But after Vatican II, it was moved to the last Sunday of the church year, the 24th Sunday of the year. The church wants to show us that Jesus should be King and center of our lives. He is the King of the entire universe, and all things should give him all. Jesus wants to rule in every part of our lives if we let him. And we know that he will come in glory to judge the living and the dead, as we heard this Sunday, but we've been hearing about end times for the last few weeks as we approached the last Sunday of the liturgical year. Fidelity to Jesus Christ means that we would work to extend his kingdom here on earth. Something to really think about. How do we see Jesus as our King in our lives? And do we realize that he will judge us someday? There are many different titles we hear in the scriptures about Jesus: the Messiah, the suffering servant, the Son of David, the Lord, the prophet, Good Shepherd, and Paschal Lamb are a few. Those who ever visited Immaculate Conception Basilica in Washington, D.C. may recall above the altar there's a great mosaic of God as the ruler of the universe and judge. One can just see the stern expression on his face, but we are also reminded of his mercy and humility towards us. As we look at our readings today, our first one uses a metaphor of the Good Shepherd who cares, tends, rescues, pastures, and seeks and heals us. God cares for us in the source of our strength and conviction to carry out what he asks us to do for the least of our people. In biblical times, shepherds often had an overtone of kingship, and we can think of King David, but we can also, who was a shepherd, but we can also think of Jesus, who continues to shepherd his flock each and every day. Our psalm also reminded us of the shepherd, reminding us on Psalm 23 how God is taking care of us if we will let him. He will lead us through the dark valleys, and he will help us to continue to go up the mountain of praise to the Lord. The second reading reminds us the Corinthians were having doubts about the resurrection of the body, and Paul reassures them, Christ is the first fruit of the resurrection, and on the last day you also will rise from the dead. The gospel also is beautiful, but in some ways it's fearful as we think about the scene of the last judgments. Most of us don't want to think about that judgment, but of the mercy and love and kindness that God will give us. So we might want to ask today, do we see ourselves as one of the sheep or as the goats? Being here today at Mass, you probably think of yourself as the sheep, though we are imperfect sheep right now. It reminds us that we will be judged on the basis of what we do. And we heard in the Gospel, Matthew 25, which Jesus gives this simple way of following Jesus, saying, whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. We can't make excuses or rationalize our way out of the judgment. We can say that we don't know, because Jesus had told us what we need to do to prepare for heaven. So our actions to others are the actions towards God. This is a standard, having mercy, generosity, and self-giving love. Not only thinking, perhaps, of the worldly things like wealth and power. Jesus invites each one of us to accept him as the King of our lives. We are all called to be his disciples. Christ, by obtaining glory from the cross, asks us to take up our own cross and follow him to glory. David shepherded the people of Israel, while Jesus shepherds all the universe. Do we follow when he tries to lead us during our prayer? So we continue to ask, how is Jesus King of my life? If he truly rules, then we need to give him every dimension of our lives, the good parts and even the not so good. So let us, on this day that we celebrate our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe, listen to our shepherd's voice and listen also to where he is leading us.